All right, welcome in, everyone. My name's Alex Simon, American In Leeds, the American Leeds YouTube channel, podcast. So happy and really lucky to be with Locky. As you know, Locky, tactical genius on Leeds United. He's
Definitely not.
he is one of the
But thank you.
foremost experts on really a lot of the tactical knowledge. I really encourage you to, if you're not subscribed, subscribe to Locky and follow him on Twitter. Great insights there. Of course, Gier Lynch, Gier Lynch. Gier and I have been connected for a long time, and obviously Leeds United, The View, Gier Lynch on Twitter. He is a great leader to have in our space to talk about Leeds United. Jerry, I always think of you as a journalist. You are first and foremost a journalist, and
I'm not a journalist.
I know you're not. I know you're not, but you cover a lot of the stories that I think we're obviously hungry for as a fan base. So I think
go for Guru, Alex.
Guru, Leeds United
aggregate site.
Aggregate site. And Phil's one of the big I think supporters on Twitter, and you're in a few other spaces too, but you run a huge Twitter chat. I don't know how many people are in it. I think at one time it was like up to 50 or something crazy like that. You obviously host spaces as well. Phil, you're at Phil or Pow Phil on Twitter. And you said Leeds United chose you. So you've been a fan for a long time, and always appreciate your insight. You always have a lot of balance in your Leeds United discussion. So I always appreciate your takes on Leeds United. So look, it's the international break. Couple little bits. Actually, I was kind of noodling around on Twitter that have just come through. Adam Pope says that Oxford away will be at 8 p.m. Friday night, and Stoke at home stays at 3 p.m. on Monday. That's just fresh there. Hull City is just named Joffe Gelhardt the player of the month. So let's see if I could share my screen. So it looks like a loan that's working out for both sides there, as a wonderful little picture of Joffe. And the other news that's breaking, was there another thing, or is that it? I think that's it. Those are the main two things that just kind of popped up on my screen. So let's kick off the discussion. There's been a ton of little things off and on about the number 10. I talked about the number 10 a lot on my discussion, but I'm going to get interrupted with my son here. But Gier, let's start off with you. What do you think about Aronson versus Nanto in the number 10? Who would you go with? And we'll take it from there.
I think for the next game, I would be inclined to go with Willie Nanto in the 10. I think Brendan Aronson's had a huge amount of football this year, probably more than he's used to playing consecutively games, especially the amount of just the volume of games. I think he's close to, he's over 30 games already played this season, 35 games played this season. Outside Melier and Rodon, I don't think anyone else has played the same amount of minutes. I could be wrong, but I don't think they've played as much minutes as he has.
Right, mate,
yeah, so I think just from if you look at his form in the Premier League with Leeds as well, it started to trail off towards the end of the season as well. Same in Germany. He's just not used to playing the volume of games that he's playing right now. So I think he could probably do a little bit of a rest. I think Willie Nanto's got the skill set to play there. I think he was brought in by Leeds when he came in from Zurich originally as a central player, as a number 9, and then ended up playing elsewhere. I think I read this week one of the Italian journalists talking about Nanto, and he said that the reason Nanto plays out wide in England is because of the physicality of the centre-backs in the UK, and until he gets fully used to that, there's no point in him playing in the centre, but he ultimately will end up in the centre at some point. He's got a low centre of gravity, good close control, can find a pass, comfortable shooting with left or right foot. I think if you go up against low blocks and mid blocks, at this point of the season, you're looking for somebody who can open that up. So I would be all in favour of that. I think you could rest Aronson. You could bring him in for the last 15, 20 minutes of a game to have an impact off the bench as well, fresher legs. I think there's value in that as well, especially with the run-in. I think it also changes up what oppositions are expecting. Daniel Farke's team at this stage, similar to this point last year, has started to become a little bit predictable. I think we can all guess what the team's going to line up like the next game. And I think from that perspective, even putting on to win for one game, especially the next one, will have to change how manager views Leeds setup. And I know Locky probably went into more detail around why he's different to Aronson, but they are a different type of player and they do different things and they have different positives and negatives to them. So, yeah, for me, I just think not because of the run of bad games. I mean, Aronson's gone 13 games with a goal or an assist, but he should have had an assist 2 weeks ago. He was unlucky. Not that the Joe Piru goal was a perfectly legitimate goal. It was taken off him. So it's easy to look at the G&A stats and then go, oh, look, not contributing. There's an awful lot more he does on the pitch that does contribute for Leeds. But I think at the moment, Leeds need to unlock defences and get goals. I think right now, Brendan's starting to flag a little bit in terms of fitness. And I would, at this point, be swapping him out. I think the international break for Brendan has come at a really good time. And the fact that he hasn't been called up, I think also just gives him a chance to have a bit of a break and a bit of time off for what will be a very busy running. But yeah, I would happily right now swap them over, but still use both.
You know, it's interesting. He's kind of at he's at a little bit of a rut right now in the season. And I just think it might be a little bit of fatigue, but he just clearly looks out of form. I mentioned on my channel that I think that not being named to the USMNT side was big for him. And, you know, he's been, I don't think he's missed a call up for several years. So this was the first time in a long time he's missed a call up. And he was replaced by two young kids that are currently actually at the MLS, which is not nearly at the level of the championship. But Locky, you did an in-depth video. And so please look at Locky's channel. He talked about the nuances of the attributes of Aronson and Farke's system and what the differences are. But what are you seeing with Aronson right now and Nanto's brief kind of just second half appearance with the first team?
Yeah, well, first, I think I have to say this. I think Nanto was really good for I'd say 25, 30 minutes when he came on. I thought he was really good. And I did a video on it, and I went into a lot of detail about just my personal perspective, you know, from a recruitment perspective, when you're looking for a player, what you need a player for the system and all that stuff. But, and this is kind of blasphemy what I'm going to say from working in that sector, but at the end of the day, you kind of look at the last 8 games of the season, and the biggest thing is, regardless of if he fits the system or not, he's better than the league. He's not, he's a better player than the league. So from that, I think Farke can kind of just say, yeah, he's not perfect, but as Joe said, he can cause damage. You know, I think that's kind of, you know, we have to just say that at the time. It's fair to say he doesn't suit the system, and I agree. I don't think he's ideal, but he's better than whoever he's up against most weeks. And I think that's important, because we're not in the Premier League. We don't need these perfect system players, because every single week we are the better team in terms of what we've got. So it's kind of just at this point now, if he's in form, play him, because that's what we need. There's 8 games to go. You know, we need to win the league. If he comes on in 45 minutes and he shows us what he can do, that's merit enough to play him for me. And the Aronson thing is, you know, I think he was excellent when he did get the game after he got dropped from the US team against Millwall. I thought he was outstanding, actually. I thought he was really good. That was his best performance for a while for me. But I don't know what happened since then. I think he was angry in that game. You know, he was definitely playing for it. But yeah, against QPR, I actually think his energy levels look slightly lower. I think he died off in the game, which he never really does. That's the thing with Aronson. He is so physically fit. He's just got, you know, just a little runner in it. It's what he's really good at. I think managers and himself don't really realise when he is tired. And he's probably one of them players who's very honest. He's not very honest, you know. How are you feeling, Brendan? He'll say, yeah, I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. I'm fine. He knows he's not. It's not a physical thing. Maybe it's a mental thing. Fatigue, playing so many games every week. You know, I think Joe mentioned it, but yeah, I think he's played every game this season. Am I right? Has he been dropped from any game? Obviously, at the start of the season when Rutt was here, he weren't starting, was it? But that weren't for long. He's played a lot of football.
And Farke never subs at halftime.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they're all 90 minutes. You know, until recently. So
he started 36 games. He's played 38 in total this season.
Crazy.
Trying to see what his numbers were like last season, but
And that'll hurt. That'll affect you, and you're playing at a team that every single week, it's so much pressure. It is so much pressure. And you are the 10. You are expected to be the best player on the pitch, in a league. Sorry, Joe, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, for context, he started 14 games last season in the Bundesliga. He played 30 in total, but he started 14.
Yeah.
So big difference. He's played double. He started double that this season already.
And for me, what Aronson's got to do now, I think the rest. I agree. The rest it's really good for him. The rest is excellent. 2 weeks it won't be 2 weeks. It'll be a week. Won't it? He'll be back in training obviously soon. Yeah. But it's huge for him. I think he's a strange player. And you'll be able to tell me more, Alex. Obviously, growing up in the US and seeing how he played there, but I don't know. I just see so much in him. And when he played against Millwall, when he was going 1v1s and he was beating his men easily, why can't he do that every week? Because he's so quick on the ball. I think when he's got confidence behind him and he's got a bit of anger behind him, he's so quick on the ball. It's just that final product as well. And if he was a player, you've got to remember, like you just said, he's been dropped for some younger guys for the US. He was that guy a few years ago. He was the young talent coming through who had all the potential. And this is football. This is what it can do to you. Your career's like this, it kind of evens out, doesn't it? He's got to get out of that now. Because you might disagree, and this is just me. I think there's a lot more there. I just don't think he knows how to find it yet.
Maybe.
Yeah, there is. I think you're right. There is more there. He grew up playing soccer or football in the basement of his parents' place. So he's kind of really good in some of his best moments. He's in those close quarters, kind of sneaks through and does something that nobody really can. That's where his strengths are. Progress is not a straight line, up or whatever. You're going to go down and up. And he's certainly in a down period. That stat that you said, Jir, about he's already doubled his games, I think just warrants the fact that he's now he's knackered. He needs a rest. And so I think we're all in agreement. And so the other thing is, it's a good thing he didn't go, because the U.S. is playing in California. So that's literally, I think that's 9 hours difference. 11 hours difference. And then he's flying. So he's out. The U.S. is playing out in California, and then they play back on the East Coast in Connecticut. I'm so happy in a sense that he didn't get. I'm sure Leeds would have probably made a difficult phone call to the USMNT and Pochettino to something about Aronson. So, anyways, all right. All this to say, Phil? What do you think? What's your take on all this in the 10 position? I'm going to throw a curveball at you, Phil, too. Because Farke before all this did Perot in the 10, and then he put Joseph up top. So, what do you think? What do you think about that 10 position?
I think there's a couple of things to actually look at, and I trust in Farke without a shadow of a doubt. I think that Willie needs to make sure. I think that Aronson brings Peru into the game a lot. I think that Aronson and Peru are a good team. I think when Willie comes in, Willie may be a little bit more selfish in that position, and I hope he's been taught that he needs to know that number 10 spot he needs to bring Peru into the game. What I do like about bringing Willie into the position now is that if you look recently, they've been doubling up on Solomon on the left-hand side. And I think that bringing Nonto into the middle will counteract that a little bit and should open one or two bits and pieces up. So I'm all for it. I would have liked Farke to have tried him a little bit earlier in the season, maybe. It's getting to the end. But, when he came on, he did a good job. So I'm okay with Willie being number 10. And he's done it for Italy, so.
Yeah, yes.
Can I just say as well, Phil made a great point there about when he came on, Perot, look, Nonto was excellent. I'm not saying he was. And down that right, we looked deadly, didn't we, when he went out there and the combinations were excellent. But my biggest worry, and I mentioned this in my video, was when he's doing that, Perot in the box, you have to find him. He's not going to be someone who's going to move around. You've got to find him. Yeah. And I don't think we had a box threat. And I think Perot was a bit anonymous, and it's not his fault. We didn't have anyone else in there. The combinations were all out wide. But what Farke said, and this is a little thing that he said, was we've been working on it with Nonto. So
Yeah.
that gives me hope that, you know, it's something that
ready.
they are going to look at, they are going to analyse. And because Perot, in my opinion, is not our best player in terms of all the pitch, but he's very important. We need his goals. So we have to, as Phil rightly said, we have to find a way to make sure Nonto going in there, if he doesn't affect Perot's input on the game, because he is so important to me. And you're right, the combinations, they've done it 2 or 3 times, Aronson and Perot this season, little 1-2s around the box. And so for me, I like it, but we need to find a way to balance it to where Perot isn't just there by himself.
You have to feed your striker. If you want your striker to score,
absolutely.
especially the kind of striker that Joao Peru is, when people will criticize his anonymous. You know what I mean? They'll criticize that part of his game when he's not scoring goals, and I think that's the important part of. That's the kind of striker he is. His job. He's not the hold up striker. He's not the link up striker. He's not going to press, but he's going to score goals if you feed him. So you've got to get those balls into him in effective areas where he's at his absolute best, running at goal, or as Locky said, those little interchange passes right on the edge of the box where Piru just feeds off danger there. He loves that kind of stuff. So, also just to mention on Aronson, last season he played 1,280 minutes all season. So far this season, he's played 2,974, so more than double. Last year, he averaged 43 minutes a game. This season, he's averaged 78 minutes per game. So again, nearly double.
Yeah,
it's crazy amount.
We'll transition to our next subject, Farke. Farke is interesting to me. Just the debate on him. And the fact that there is even a debate sometimes, but I run a small little channel, and I'm sure Locky, you get it, Jer, you get it, Phil, you see it on social media and in the chat. Man, people are wanting Farke out already, and or saying that we'll promote him and then immediately can him in the summer, which is terrible. It sounds like a terrible. How would you like to be Daniel Farke? You get this giant club up and then immediately you're sacked. I just think, look, I mean, I guess it could happen, but I don't think the 49ers would do that.
Alex, can I just make a point here? I had a bit of a ding-dong on social media about this subject with a guy. So I thought, do you know what? I'll actually put it up on a vote on social media on what people think. And basically, it was really straightforward. It was, if we get promoted at the end of the season, who's in favour of sacking Daniel Farke at the end of the season promotion? And the answer was actually 33% thought that was the right thing. I'm flabbergasted. I could not believe it. Listen, this is Twitter, and my views on Twitter are listen, it's a crazy world, but it did surprise me. Yeah.
So whenever we do falter, it's sometimes not his system, and then it's like, could you question whether he got the players ready? Yes or no, maybe. I mean, we'll go into the Premier League and everything going on there, right, in a little bit. But I mean, I always thought, even when Bielsa was wavering, up until the very end, I said, you got to dance with the girl that brought you. Stay loyal to the person that got you promoted. And it's a whole nother world up there. But yeah, I'm comfortable with keeping with Farke. I've told you, Jer, that the leash will probably be short on him, and we've both been in agreement and talked about the importance of getting signings early. It'll be a heck of a whirlwind in the summer if we do get promoted. Well, either way, if we get promoted, unfortunately, stay where we are. But what's your take on Farke? And I'm going to first go over to Locky because you're the tactician. What do you think, Locky? What's your analysis of Daniel Farke now, the year 2?
Yeah, I think it's so. I mean, Joe spoke about this earlier on in the season. There's a difference between enjoying a style and accepting that a style is really good and effective. And I think that's it. I don't think a lot of people love the way we play, which is fine. You can't argue that. People have their own opinions on how they want to watch football. It's not my favorite style of all time. I love, obviously the Bielsa style, but the way Forest are playing, I love that type of style, that quick, powerful football. But it's worked consistently. Maybe not enough to get promoted, but it's worked consistently for 2 years now. And it's definitely a blueprint and a method to that. Now, my thing with Farke is I know people mention the Premier League record, but honestly, I don't think that's fair. When the first time they went up, they spent £5 million. The second time they went up, they spent £30 million, but sold Buendia for that amount. So they sold the best player. Their best player in the Premier League was Timo Pukki and Todd Cantwell for a period. Do you know what I mean? This was what he was working with. We know it'll be completely different if Leeds get promoted. I understand the concerns. Obviously, I do. Because obviously the record is there. He's not had a great Premier League, but I look at someone like Marco Silva, who failed in the Premier League previously with Everton and, went to Fulham, did what he's done at Fulham. Now look at him. They're a really competitive side challenging for Europe. I look at someone like Thomas Frank, who with that, look at that Brentford side, by the way, that he had in the Championship that got through the playoffs. Add all the guys that are starring there now, and Buemo and all them lot. Tony up front. It was a ridiculous team. Got through the playoffs. Look at them in the Premier League each year. For me, it's about recruitment. I think it's absolutely massive. Not only have you got to get the right players, but they've got to be the caliber. They've got to fit the league. This is the biggest thing. I think a lot of recruitment in the Premier League is about that player's perfect for the way we play. But they've also got to be perfect for the league. I think that's really important. So, for example, if Farke wants, let's say a technical number 8, that's fine. But for me, he's got to be a powerful technical number 8 because that's the demand of the league. And you look at, teams that go up now. For me, there's too much emphasis on Championship players. I don't fully agree with that. I think you've got to have a balance of European players and players from the Championship. The teams that have gone up for me, Ipswich, Southampton, all they bought is Championship players.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the level between the Championship and the Premier League is massive. There's no guarantee. But to get back on Farke, I think there's a decision to make. There always is. They have to analyse the season at the end of it. But I completely agree. If you're sticking with him, you have to 100% back him. Or as a ownership, you've failed. You can't back him. You can't keep the manager, then kind of give him a bit of money. You've got to back him. You have to. Because at the end of the day, if it came, for me, 10 games into it, we've just finished. The window's just finished. We've just bought all our players for the manager. And we're sitting at the bottom of the Premier League, then you've got a decision to make because you can bring in a new manager, but you've just had the transfer window with the other manager's players. So the squad might not work. So I understand the conversation. I genuinely do. I get it. But I think he gets Leeds United promoted and you've got to give him that chance, but you have to back him right. That's key for me. So I've seen managers, Alex, that, like I just mentioned there, Thomas Frank, Marco Silva, who got teams promoted, who failed originally in the Premier League, Marco Silva did, came back with Fulham, and they've not looked back because they've just backed him each year. They've got him the right players.
Back him and back him early. Gier, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Locky nailed every single point that you could possibly put down. I had a lot of notes written down. He pretty much said every single thing that I would have said. I think some of the stuff he says is really, really important. This time last year, I remember seeing Leicester fans saying that even if they got promoted, they wanted Maresca gone.
Yeah,
I think if you ask them now, they might change their mind. Do you know what I mean? Like, so you do get this, but as Locky said, and I do get it. I do 100%. I understand the side of the people who support the club who are like, don't like this guy, don't like this style, not for me. Horses for horses, I suppose. Whatever you're into, you're into. I'm the same as Locky. I like fast-paced possession with purpose football. I like the ball to be moved forward as often as possible and quickly. I'm a big proponent of tempo. Oh, everyone my channel's sick of hearing me say tempo. But I think it's hugely important. And if you go to the Premier League, tempo in the Premier League is vital. If you're a slow team, you're going to get decimated up there. So you've got to be on the front foot the whole time. So that's really important. Sometimes I think I'm not a huge fan of Daniel Farke's style of football. Sometimes I think it's laboured. It doesn't need to be. Not always. Just sometimes. There's been parts of this season where people have described it as boring. I would describe it as just being a bit slow, being a bit too possession-based without the purpose part of it, like keep the ball rather than actually progressively pass it forward. And sometimes we can be too slow to transition, which allows teams to get into those low blocks and mid blocks and drop in and get settled because we're still passing the ball around the back and we haven't come out with it yet. So I think there's elements of that which I understand that people don't like. But I think the major point is Daniel Farke was hired to get Leeds promoted to the Premier League. And if he does that, he deserves a crack at the Premier League. I mean, that's the job. I mean, I know from my time in coaching, I got a team promoted in Meath to top division as part of a coaching team. And then I was asked to manage the reserve team the following year and not coach the senior team anymore. So I never got a crack at actually managing at that level and coaching at that level, and I wanted to. And I felt really harshly treated and done by at that point. I think if I'm the manager of a championship side who's gotten promoted, and especially if he wins the league, I think it's incredibly harsh to say, well, your job was to get us promoted as champions. You've done that. See ya. I just don't see that's the right way to treat people. And I think as a club, we're better than that. But I'll caveat that by saying there is one exception to that for me. And that's if we end up in the playoffs, and I don't care, even if we do get promoted in the playoffs, I think there's a question mark around the manager then, because this team should go up automatically. And it should have gone up automatically last year, and it should this year. So there are question marks around certain parts. Locky's talked about the recruitment being key to this. I think the recruitment and the timing of the recruitment is vital. Daniel Farke's teams historically take about 10 games to get moving properly. You don't have that luxury in the Premier League. If you're waiting until the final day of the transfer window to bring your key players in, you could be 10, 15 points behind everybody by that stage.
And we've seen that, haven't we? We take long in windows. We do it near the end. We can't afford that in the Premier, right? We've got to go
possibly got away with it in the Championship, but then, if you look at the form table, look how long it took Leeds to get to that top position and then stay there. Yeah. If you start the season faster, you're going from day one and you're already in advantage. The quicker Leeds could get to 40 points if they get promoted next year, the better, because it takes the nerves and the anxiety from the stadium away as well, and we can enjoy ourselves like we did the first year we were up. So the timing of the recruitment is going to be vital. They need to get their business done early. They'll be a Premier League club at that stage. If they get promoted, there's no reason for messing about in the transfer market and waiting until the final day of the window to get your key people in. But that needs to be done and dusted much faster than it has been. And Leeds need to start the season day one ready to go and not still kind of finding their feet, or Farke is still not 100% sure what his best 11 is. That needs to be done and dusted pretty early on. And I think if you can do that right, I agree with Locky. You got to back the guy. You can't be half pregnant. So either you are or you're not. If you're a Premier League club, act like a Premier League club. The owners have got deep pockets. Show us. You've got to do that as well. But yeah, it's a split one for me. I understand what he's doing. He's a very pragmatic, effective style, and it's working. If he wins the league or comes second, give him a crack at the Premier League. But as you say, Alex, and I completely agree with you, he'll be on a much shorter leash next season. If they don't start well, it could be a very short period in the Premier League.
There's too much on the line. We can't go back down. I know that's what's been happening the past 2 seasons, but we have to buck that trend. Phil, anything on Daniel Farke, his style, what you're seeing?
I agree quite a bit with what's been said. I think that Daniel Farke will have already had this conversation when he signed his contract. I think all these discussions will have been already in place, and Daniel Farke will have said exactly what he needs when he goes to the Premiership. I think then it's up to the 49ers to back him, just like you said, and back him early. You can't be bringing players in with a week to go before the season starts. Let's put that just doesn't work. But I'm also going to say, with a bit more of a pat on the back for Daniel Farke, even though people might not like his style of play, and I understand that. For me, as a long-suffering Leeds United fan, I don't care how we play as long as we get over the line. To be fair, and for me, he's done a good job. I think he was unlucky at the end of last season. I don't think it was a fall off personally because of the international break. I think there was. If I'm really honest with you, if you actually look at the stats, we fell off after the whole game, and that was a game that Chris Somerville took the ball off Pirro in front of the Kop, and I think that completely dismantled the dressing room at that time. And I think Daniel Farke had a lot to contend with. So I don't get it's an international break fall off. I think this international break now has come right for us. So I think it was a bit misdone by the end of last season. I'm also going to say, though, on the back of that, although I completely agree with everybody says, I still am not convinced of who I would be replacing him by.
Right.
And also, if we didn't have Bielsa, this might be a slightly different conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's all I'm going to say on that. That's all I'm going to say.
Sure. We're Bielsa widows in a sense. He really did show us the beautiful game.
It's a massive factor, Alex. It's a massive factor because we're expecting that level of football.
Yes.
And not every manager is going to deliver that.
It's rare. It's very rare, and we're lucky. We were lucky to witness it.
We were.
Even if Pep had come in at the end of this season, it would have still been judged on.
Sure.
Bielsa. There's not many managers that can come in and follow somebody like Marcelo.
And now we've had 3 or 4 managers since him. I mean, the three prior to Farke really probably weren't anywhere close to Bielsa or Farke for that sense. You mentioned an interesting thing about that Crease Somerville. There were players. I don't want to throw any of the players on the bus, but I just subconsciously there was players that probably knew they were going up with or without the club. That was the argument sometimes where Ipswich were going to go up as a group. They were either going to go up as a group and do this kind of double promotion, or things Cree was probably going to go. He knew that the more G&A he was going to get, the more marketable he was going to be. I just think he probably knew that. I can't speak to Georgie. He's kind of he just loves it. Every time I see Jorginho Ruteri, he just loves to play football. I mean, that's who he is. Yeah. Great personality to have on the pitch.
Look, if you actually look, Alex, at the fixtures, the last few fixtures of last season, after the international break, we won 2 games. And then we hit the whole game where the Somerville incident happened. And then we lost 4-1, drew 1.
Huh.
And for me, that was all about the fractions within the group of players.
Yeah. Interesting.
Everybody knows as a high-level footballer, you don't take the ball off your colleague as a striker. And I know it would just come on the pitch in front of the Ellen Road Cop in such an important game because you're disrespecting your manager, your captain, and your other players, and that's got to have an effect on the players on the pitch. It's got to.
Yeah.
I was going to say. Oh, go on, Jeff. Sorry, mate.
No, I was going to say very short. I go all Roy Keane for a second here, but grow up.
Yeah,
they need to grow up. Oh, you took the ball off me. You're a professional footballer getting paid an insane amount of money. Grow up, get on with the game, finish the job. But to go into the last game, and I don't disagree with you, Phil. I think you're probably right that was a catalyst to what happened. But my God, if you can't pick yourself up after that and go and win a game of football, what are you doing playing football? You're in the wrong game. Have a backbone. Your feelings were hurt. Great, get on with it. You know what I mean? Like that's.
It's like a little thing, but a small thing. You know what I mean?
The trouble was last season we relied on Chris Somerville so much that So
it was like
I think that had a big effect.
What do you think, Locky?
I was just going to quickly say on. So I went to the final, the playoff finals, lucky enough to get tickets, and I don't really want to mention names to be honest, but I was there when the final whistle blew, and everyone's different. But you can tell some players that hurt a lot and some players didn't care. Or didn't care enough. Obviously, they care. They wanted to play. Jorginho Rutter he couldn't stand up. He was looking at the crowd. He was crying. Ampadu was crying. Certain players, Archie Gray was devastated. I'm not going to. Some players were smiling and laughing with each other and joking around. And I texted some of my friends. I went, don't want them here. No. And that was a big concern to me. Some of them are not here now. And I think that showed. Some of them left very quickly after the window went.
Adam Pope already said that there were rumours. I think it was Adam Pope said it. There was a lot of people in the club relieved when Cree left because there was issues last season. Apparently himself and Willie rocked up late to the playoff final. So, and that wasn't unusual for Cree. to rock up late. I think Jed Spence had a swing at a comment when he went back about saying it's only an issue at Leeds if you're late, if you're not in the starting 11. And nobody really knew who that was aimed at. And I think by the end of the season and seeing people move on, it was like, well, it was possibly aimed at Cree, possibly. Because and again, Adam Pope said it on Don't Go to Bed Just Yet, he has seen him arrive late for games. So...
And Jay Cook said ago him for his attitude. So club captain saw him go. Jesse Marsh implemented the same. Didn't he go to Holland when he was told that he shouldn't do for his birthday at some point? I think that had a big factor.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things. I mean, to Tajir's original point, I mean, I feel like sometimes we take those little things too long. Like you said, like it happened in a game. You got to flip the script, flush it and get on with the rest of the season. There's so much to play for. If that little thing's like I think we make too much of that classic, what happened at halftime at Crystal Palace.
Nothing happened.
Right. And I know, I heard you reporting.
Stuart Dallas has said it directly to my face.
Right.
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened. But we as fans are like, was that the moment? Things that go on in locker rooms. There's been crazy stuff that goes on in locker rooms where guys probably didn't like each other, hated each other, and went on to win championships because, Yeah.
And Roy Keane is an example. The man won everything you could possibly win in the game, bar World Cup and European Championship for an international level. But at club level, he won everything. How many players got along with him? Like very few.
Right. So I think it's a big mix of both, and it's disappointing to hear some of that stuff about Somerville because obviously it continued on. But look, I mean, obviously he's going through some struggles right now. So,
and look how George is getting on. I mean,
love him.
Yeah,
and I could say as well on Somerville, like he did so much for us that season. He was genuinely, he's excellent. He really was. So many games he'd win by himself. I was a player who. I was horrible. I'll be honest. If I got subbed in the 88th minute, I'd kick off because I wanted to play every minute. That's just the way I was. So I sympathise with players that get frustrated and stuff like that. But I was always on time. I always made sure I was on time. I think that's really important for any footballer.
Same thing with Rafinha. I think people thought Rafinha was a little bit greedy or jealous or greedy or kind of a ball hog or whatever, but. The thing about Rafinha that I wound up finding out that I mean, nobody can tell me that, with any certainty, but Rafinha staying up with Leeds increased his value. In other words, if we got relegated, they would have just triggered a clause. But in order for him to get paid, he needed the club to stay up and get that dream deal to Barcelona and Camp Nou and everything that he wanted. Now look where he is and his possibility of top 3, top 5 to win the Ballon d'Or. So it's like a balance. It's like you want players to be greedy and you want players to kind of have that little bit. Kind of Solomon was kind of clearly visibly disappointed to be subbed off because you want him to care. You want him to give a little bit crap.
Most
about
managers,
it.
Alex, won't be bothered by a player having a little tantrum coming off the park.
No.
Because a lot of the time it's got nothing to do with the decision. It's got to do with their own performance and how they feel about coming off. Like he could be coming off the park really annoyed at how he's played, or maybe he is annoyed at the manager as well. But a lot of managers will just say, bottle that, focus it, redirect it, you'll be fine. And I'm sure by the end of that game, by the time they left the ground, that was all calmed down.
All this to say, because my first half of that, I was saying that, basically there were players on that squad that were going to go up regardless of Leeds United, where they were in the pyramid. This club does seem to be playing for each other more. And I think they do want to go up as a group. I'm guessing. I mean, again, we're outsiders. We're guys on our couch looking at this team. So I'm hopeful that is kind of what's going on, and you kind of have been seeing that, even though the form has dropped a little bit. Let's look a little bit at the run-in, because the international break might have come at a good time. But we've got Swansea as the first game out the gates, Saturday, March 29th. Luton, Borough, Preston, Oxford, Stoke, Bristol, Plymouth, and then they've got the Manchester United's friendly. But we in the season, hopefully not in the playoffs, but going up automatically at Plymouth. So the games that worry me, some people that kind of do the math and start to calculate the points, it's not the Borough that is worrying me. I feel like Leeds rise to the occasion at some of those tough games where I feel like a team is going to come at us. It's like a team like Luton that's going to worry me, where it's like an early match and a team that's struggling and this is their cup final and it's away. That's the team right there that's like a bogey for us. Obviously, I feel comfortable at most of the home matches, but Gier, Locky, Phil, what are you feeling about the run-in?
First, I saw 7:30 a.m. kickoff for Luton, and I was thinking, what's going on there?
Well, no, it's obviously all American
American.
times.
Yeah, that's an early one.
Yeah, it's all my geolocation, but yeah, probably what I think it'll be like noon or something there over across the
Luton's
pond.
12:30. Yeah.
I'll be on. I'll go quick on that Luton.
Yeah.
I don't know. Ever since I saw it, I don't know what it is. I know they're terrible, the worst team in the league, but end of the season, it will be full. The crowd will be probably rocking just for that one game. We saw it against Portsmouth, probably a similar atmosphere. These are the ones where we could struggle, especially with that pitch, which is right on top. And I watched Luton in the Prem last year, and obviously a completely different team in the bottom of the Championship, so it's not really comparable. But when that place is rocking, it's rocking. And if they're in with a shout of getting out of the bottom three on that game week, best believe that will be an outstanding atmosphere. That's what I'm worried about. I'm kind of hoping that they've completely lost the manager and they don't want to, and it's just a bit terrible, and we just go there and beat them. But I convinced myself in my brain, which helps me cope, that we will probably get the best version of them. That's what I'm worried about. And like Portsmouth, can we forget the crowd, forget the atmosphere, forget the occasion, just go do our job? That's all I want us to do. And those are the games that worry me a little bit.
Business trip.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Phil, what do you think about the run-in?
I actually think it's crucial to beat Swansea in the next game, because people will just have a complete meltdown, and that will transcend a little. Well, I hope it doesn't, but that will sort of transcend. I'm fully convinced that we will go up. I'm really convinced that we will do. But obviously, you do it with a tinge of, well, it's not set in stone. The Bristol game's a bit of a game for me. I've watched Bristol a few times. They're playing fairly well. Playoff places and that kind of thing. Bristol could be a bit of a hiccup. But take into account that you've got to. We are going to gain at least a point on Sheffield United and Burnley, and end the story. The best result, or the worst result for us, is a draw, depending on how well the games go. But we're gonna definitely pick a point up on those guys. Like I said, I think if we come out of the blocks well and we beat Swansea, then I think the running's fairly fine. The hiccup for me would be potentially Bristol. I've been looking at that. I think Bristol are a decent enough team to give us a run for his money.
Burnley and Sheffield United play each other. So there's an opportunity for, one of them will probably drop points, right? They have to. But Burnley, I'm just looking at Burnley right here. Burnley start off with Bristol, then go Coventry, Derby away, Norwich, who have been in decent form. Watford, Sheffield United, QPR, and then they end the season hosting Millwall on May 3rd. And I can pull up Sheffield United just for everybody.
Similar enough running, actually. They've got Coventry City as well in there as well. Yep. So
Coventry.
That's a game I wouldn't want at this time of the year, considering the run that they're on. The only loss they've had in the last 6 is us.
Yeah. Oxford, Millwall, Plymouth, Cardiff, Burnley, Stoke, and then they end the season hosting Blackburn Rovers on May 3rd. So what do you feel about the run-in? How confident are you at the automatic promotions?
I still think we go up automatically. I think if we don't, it's a failure of a season, because I think this squad is good enough to go up automatically. I think they're balanced enough. There's enough options there to overcome the odd blip. We're going to have blips. Teams are still going to drop points. There's a lot of points left to play for. Teams are still going to drop some points between all three sides. Are going to drop points between now and the end. It's just where and when they come from and how many you do it. I think from a Leeds perspective, I agree with Phil. I think Bristol City's a tricky one, but we're at home in that game. So at least we've got that behind us. And I don't see us losing that game, but Bristol City have been a problem. Like, they gave Sheffield United a hell of a game. I nicked the point off them. I think the Luton one is again, to Locky's point, it's a tricky one, because I think the fans will be behind them. But the one thing for that I'm okay with is it's a very tight, aggressive ground, and we're used to a very tight, aggressive ground in Ellen Road. The fans are on top of us there, so they're used to that kind of aggressive atmosphere. They should be okay. The Oxford away one for me is the banana skin, because it's away from home against a team that we should be guaranteed to beat. And we know what Leeds do when you're guaranteed to do something. Do the opposite. So I think that they're the kind of ones. Middlesbrough away won't be straightforward at all. I think that's probably the trickiest of all of the games we have between now and the end of the season, is Borough away. Shown this year already that if we decide to go and have a go at them and open up, they can very easily open up and come back against us. We saw that in the cup game. But yeah, I think if we don't get promoted automatically at this point, we've done it to ourselves. I think it'll be a capitulation if that happens. I think if the run of games that are there are winnable. And I think by the time you get to Bristol City, Plymouth, you should already be promoted. I mean, you're talking about 2 games left at that stage, maximum 6 points available. You'd want to have that gap to third place. I don't care about first and second, if I'm being really honest. I'd love to see us lift the trophy again, 100%. But I genuinely don't care as long as we get up automatically. The gap for me needs to be to third place. Whether that's Sheffield United or Burnley by that stage, I don't know, because Burnley have finally decided they're going to start scoring goals against teams. So you've got the team with the best defensive record in the league, who are now starting to score for fun, when their biggest problem was they couldn't score goals. All of a sudden, they look like the team that could. If anyone's going to pip anybody, it could be Burnley, that just bypasses everyone and goes up automatically as a champion. So I just think that game between those two is going to be hugely important from a Leeds perspective. Borough, Bristol City, I think, are going to be the 2 trickier ones in that run. Maybe Oxford as well as banana skin. But outside of that, I mean, you're looking Leeds where they are currently. Leeds have 3 teams from the bottom 5 places in that run-in. They've got Oxford and Stoke, who are not much above that either. The only one they've gotten in the top 10 is Bristol City. Everyone else is the lower half of the table. We saw last year, hasn't really been as much of a problem this year, but we saw last year it was a case of beating teams below us. If we can beat the teams below us, we should be fine. And if you go through that list, Bristol City are 7th, but still have a chance to the playoffs. So they're not going to come back and sit, because they got a chance to get promoted. They're going to need to get points. Preston mid-table, nothing to play for. Fine. I nearly want them to have something to play for, because it means they won't sit back. You've got Swansea 16th place. We've got a decent record against them. Then you've got Oxford 18th for 4 points above the relegation zone. Stoke 2 places above the relegation zone. And Luton and Plymouth very much in the relegation zone. So again, if you're looking to be the best team in the league, and if this squad of players, this is important for me, if this group of players want to make a case for themselves staying at the club next season and being Premier League level players, you got to go and beat these teams. Because if you're not beating these teams, you have no hope in the Premier League of being at that level that's needed up there. So there's a lot of pressure on this group of players in terms of showing what they're capable of and what they think their ceiling is and where they can go to next season. Are we talking about overhauling an entire squad in the summer? Or are we talking about, well, actually, it's only a spine that we need. The rest of the squad is pretty much good enough or not? That'll be decided in these next 8 games. And then for Daniel Farke, it's a case of, can he motivate his team to lead all the way to the end and be chased? Where last season it was easy to motivate them because you were chasing. And you know what your opposition are doing. You know how many points you've got to get. You know what you've got to do every single week. The way Leeds games are going to come up, not every week we'll know what the opposition have coming into the game. So we're going to have to look after our own job. It's a very different type of pressure to be the chased rather than the chasee. It's a very different motivational factor. We've seen Farke look for more goals from Tanaka. Says he wants Pirro on 20 goals this season. He's starting to find other ways to motivate them and challenge these players. And he's going to have to do that. He needs to get the form back. That's the most important thing. To Phil's point, I think a win against Swansea is vitally important just to calm the nerves and get them moving again for the last 8 games.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think this is what annoys me about this team so much is when the start of games, we're either 2-0 up in 10 minutes, or we
1-0
can
down.
be 1-0, 2-0 down in 15, 20 minutes. I think we never really start a game just normal. We're either really quick or suddenly we're shocked. Like I said, the Luton situation, the atmosphere will be up. You can see them getting a cross into the box or a set piece early on. We're 1-0 down, the crowd's buzzing. We just need to start these games really. I know it's cliche to say, but I think the start is huge because in the running as well, you want to get established early and then we know the job. 1-0 up early or just 0-0 at halftime. I don't mind that. I don't care because I believe in our ability. It's when we start slow and we always seem to concede when we start slow. It's never we start slow and we get lucky. We're always conceding when we start slow. We can't really be doing that now because that's just constantly in the last 8 games. Mentally, that's so tough. You've got to get back into the game. Just start the games well and just be solid, and then our ability will show for me in the end.
It's also got to be said, Alex, as well, that at this stage of the season, the bottom teams aren't just a rollover. They're also fighting for their lives to stay in this league, which puts another big stumbling block in your way. It's not a case of, well, listen, we can afford to lose this one against Leeds. There's not enough games left for them to do that. When they're in the bottom half of the table, every game is vital for them. So again, it's not a case of, well, we're only playing one of the top 6. The bottom 6 are also trying to play their backsides off to stay in the league.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully,
I'm not.
You've mixed fun and anxiety up again, Alex.
I'm just trying to flip the mindset. I think I'm hoping this team rises to the occasion. I've always said I think the fullbacks are key to this season. The fullbacks have been fairly key. I like Nanto in that 10. I even kind of like Perot dropping into the 10, and if Joseph can somehow maybe find form if he's away at Spain, but I'm hoping Leeds cover themselves in glory. We get automatically promoted. Let's wave a magic wand. Leeds get promoted. The parade happens. The streets of Leeds are soaked in all the kind of
everything,
right?
Everything.
So after the day after that is the real time where I think the front office is tested. I want to play a couple audio clips. First one is BBC 5 and their take on what's happened to the basically the 3 promoted teams.
And of course, Ipswich, they've got to get another 23 points in the remaining fixtures collectively to beat the 66 points.
Statistically, is this the worst bottom 3 we've ever seen in Premier League history?
It could be, yes. After 28 games, it is the worst with only 43 points in those 28 games. Those teams that are ever going to finish in the bottom 3, Southampton, Leicester, and of course, Ipswich, they've got to get another 23 points in the remaining fixtures collectively to beat the 66 points that the bottom 3 got last season, which doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Ipswich in particular, they've lost leads late on in matches. They've dropped 9 points after the 75th minute in 2024-25. Do you think that's a difference between Championship and Premier League and concentration?
Oh, concentration's tough because you got to be really careful with that word because it makes it sound like after 75 minutes they just start looking out the window and thinking about what they're having for dinner later. Yeah. It's not concentration; it's just the fatigue that goes on in those games. It's the time, like I talk about all the time when you see Salah and people are screaming at the TV. Why are you letting him in on his left foot? You're not letting him in. You've just been constantly pounded the whole game. And the Premier League players, they start to feel it when they're up against their opposition. They start to work out. This is my moment. Their fatigue slightly there, and their minds start to go. And the best players and the best teams, they're 95-minute teams, and they're constant threat. And it's such a tough league mentally to stay focused. And concentration, it does go, but it's not because they're focusing on anything else. It's just they're just done.
That's the first one. The second one's going to be courtesy of Benjamin Bloom. Shout out to Benjamin. He runs the best second tier podcast out there.
That now is Ipswich, Leicester, they're pathetic. they're awful, they're dreadful. And you're like, well, yeah, the points total is awful and pathetic and dreadful. But you kind of want to say, okay, lay me out how they get 35 points. Go on, explain to me how you would have done that. Oh, well, I would have signed a load of players. They would have all worked out. Nobody else would have wanted to sign them. I wouldn't have breached FFP. They'd have won all the tight games. No bad decisions would have gone against them. They'd have got no injuries. And there's your 10 wins. And it's like, okay, mate, nice one. What?
So it's a real conundrum, right? The past 2 seasons, it's been 3 promoted sides, and they've gone straight back down. Meanwhile, the top 17 have strengthened. I mean, teams like Fulham, teams like Forest, teams like Aston Villa, of course, is a huge club, but even I'm thinking the one in London, the Bees, Bournemouth. No, Bournemouth, and all of the Crystal Palace, even Wolves. I mean, Wolves can start recruiting right now. I hate to say it, but they're going to be in the Premier League. So it's a real interesting concern. My, I guess, hypothesis is Leeds United probably need to spend 200 million, and they probably need to spend their first 100 million on a 10 and a striker and get them in early, maybe even or a 10 and a goalkeeper. You're leaving a striker a little bit open, but you get your first real 2 big signings in early, like right in the early window, and maybe overpay, and then I don't know, you start to fill in. But you follow the transfer windows every season. Have you been following the promoted teams, and how do you recruit for a summer that could be just so massive?
2 clips you've played are brilliant as well. Benjamin Bloom does an incredible job of covering the second tier. Balanced, logical. How dare he be logical? We imagine what a fantastic response to someone saying, well, how would you have got those points? Well, you wouldn't have. I think if you look at the 3 bottom sides this season, this will be the first time ever that the 3 teams promoted have gone down consecutively back-to-back, 2 seasons back-to-back. This is the first time it's ever happened, which tells you that the gap between the Premier League and the Championship is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And therefore, if you do get in there, what you need to do to stay there is bigger and bigger and bigger. This is the FFP stuff, and this is where FFP has been a problem. It was said when it came in first that all this would do was lock in the status quo exactly as it is, and they said it wouldn't, and it has done exactly what everyone thought it would do. It is now getting harder for teams to break into that. Unless you completely financially mismanage your squad like Manchester United have done, you should be able to maintain your position roughly in and around where you are. Look at Aston Villa this year. They've sold a ton of players. They're 9th in the league, but they've had a good run in the Champions League. They're still well within their chances of qualifying for it again this year, or for the Europa League anyway this year. So it's doable, but you've got to be able to spend within your means, because of FFP will kill you if you don't. From a Leeds perspective, I think the number you put up is exactly right. I think 200 million needs to be spent, but I don't think it's on quantity. I think it's on quality, and that's the key difference here. You can spend 200 million quid on bringing a load of absolute garbage in, or what we had the last time we were in the last season, the championship, in the playoff. Sorry, last season in the Premier League, where we just brought in a lot of players who it was my dream to play in the Premier League. Yeah, but not your dream to play for Leeds. And that's a problem, because you're here for the money, you're not here for the badge, and that's an issue. Leeds need to be much smarter in the summer. I think there's enough good young talent in this side that can still continue to develop over the next couple of years in the Premier League. But what Leeds will need is a Premier League level spine. And again, I agree with what Locky said. I think you've got to be able to get some good market locally, but you've got to be able to go internationally and get some top quality players. Leeds need a Premier League level number 9. Leeds in a Premier League level number 10. They need a Premier League level number 8. They might already have a Premier League level number 6, whether it's Tanaka or Ampadu. You need a Premier League level centre-backs, and we need a Premier League level goalkeeper. No gambles. No, give him a try. Give him a shot. No sentiment. Leeds to get promoted. They've got to be ruthless in the summer with their squad, and they've got to be ruthless of what they bring in, or else sentiment will put them right back where they started. And then getting out of this league is only going to get harder every year. And the finances are going to get tougher and tougher as well. And staying in the Premier League is only going to get harder. So this is it. The 49ers wanted to put a flag down, put a marker in the ground and say, this is where we belong. then they've got to get to somewhere right. If and it's still an if we get promoted. But yeah, it's absolutely important that they spend that. And again, I agree. If they spend 100 million quid on a number 9 and a 10, you've probably got 2 players that are good enough to keep you in the division. Whereabouts is different because you look at Wolves, they've been stinking up the Premier League for years now, absolutely stinking it up. And if you look at what Ben Bloom has said, and also what the lad said on BBC 5, is that I've lost my point. Hang on, come back to me in a second.
Was it the focus? Was it the focus comment?
No, it was on the quality. Actually, I think it was Locky said it. Sorry, it was Locky who said it. If you look at the players they brought in championship level players last year, top end championship level players, and then that's not going to be good enough. You might get 1 or 2 diamonds, but in general, the championship players for a reason, most of them. So they're not going to do it here. So Leeds need to be, when they go up, they've got to be able to identify quality here, and they cannot. Again, to what was said by Ben Bloom, fight this. Well, we have to attract players of a certain level because we're Leeds and we're only just got into the Premier League. Leeds need to find ways to get bigger players in, more quality players, and players that have a bit of battle and a bit of fight in them, and that needs to be a major factor in the recruitment, as well as when these lads do come in, do they have the bite, the ability, the desire, the fight in them to scrap in this league? Because as I say, that gap's only getting bigger, and trying to stay in that league's only going to get harder and harder. So we've got to get into it, establish ourselves in the first year there as being a safe team, and again, the likes of Wolves thinking the joint up. Sorry, that was the point. If Ipswich had picked up the 9 points that the 9 games that they dropped points in their last 25 minutes of the game, they'd actually be level on points with Wolves right now. So it shows you the fine margins there. They dropped points because of just not being at the level for long enough. Had they been able to do that with better quality players, then they'd probably be safe this year, because Wolves, again, have 26 points. Wolves could stay in the division on less than 30 points. Like, it's crazy that can happen.
Yeah.
But
I'll tell you what, that switched on or switching off or starting to think about, I remember Arsenal. There was a game at Arsenal, maybe where Jesse was in charge. I don't know. But it was literally Odegaard, they were kind of playing possession, and Man City do this too. A lot of good teams, even if you have possession, if the opposing teams, you just sense when they're switched off. And it was Robin Koch who was switched off, and Odegaard put this ball in, and it was just goal. They just saw they weren't focusing on the right thing, and that was a goal. And it's just the level of focus for 95 plus minutes, as that guy said on BBC 5, is just absolutely so true. We sometimes get away with things, I think, at this level, at the championship level, where you're like, we kind of got away with that. If they had any quality on that side, they might have scored there. But Locky, Phil, like, what do you think? How do we stay up next year besides just spend a boatload of money? What do you think about the fact that there's the past two seasons the promoted sides haven't had any success?
One thing I would say initially, and people might disagree with this, and this wouldn't be my strategy for any more players other than the one player I'm about to mention, I think we go sign James Milner straight away.
Interesting.
He's won everything. He's a Leeds lad. If he is injured currently, but he was playing before he got injured, I think it's perfect. I do.
Between Milner and Phillips, is Milner the
Milner. Just
because
I think we have really good sixers. I think Tanaka and Ampadu are good enough for the Premier League. Yeah. Milner has won the Champions League, the Premier League. He's from Leeds, played at Leeds, obviously. I just think what we lacked last time in the Prem, we brought all these players in, but who really, really loved this club? Who really, really loved this club? I'm not saying sentiment, get this guy, but James Milner for me is a perfect player to have around the team. I think it's to do it straight away. I remember when we went up, we tried to get him, but I think he went to Brighton already. I just think it'd be perfect. 1 year, what we need straight away is people that are ready to battle and fight. We are probably going to be in the bottom 7 or 8 most all the season. Let's be honest. If we're not, that'd be outstanding. We need him. We need players like that. I think we have some in the squad already. But for me, we've lost a lot of them. We've lost the Dallases, the Cooper. There's not a more perfect signing in terms of what the squad needs who would cost you next to nothing, if anything, than James Milner for the first year to establish yourself in the Prem. And then after that, I agree with what Joe said. I think obviously you need quality from Europe. You just do. I mean, I don't think any team ever stays up that just buys Championship. Like Joe said, 2 or 3 maybe top players from Championship. But if you're relying on like Southampton, I think they brought in like 7 or 8 from the Championship.
Yeah.
There's zero guarantee that they'll be able to step up to that level because it's massive. You need European talent there. You need, we brought Rafinha in from Rennes for 17 million straight away. You could tell he was ready for this. You need players like that who want to fight for the shirt. But it's so important for me, the identity of Leeds United as well. Like you said, in January when we brought in the players that we brought in, they wanted to play in the Premier League. James Milner, you know for a fact, you bring James Milner in, he wants to play for Leeds United. He wants to keep Leeds in the Premier League. So I think. Sorry.
Well, no, I remember Klopp would bring Milner on a lot sometimes to. He kind of would be like a little general out there. Obviously, sometimes he wore the armband if the captain was down, but he was clearly a leader for Liverpool and a lot of their good runs under Klopp.
I just want to clarify, he's old. I'm not saying starts by any means. Don't get me wrong.
Well, Klopp wasn't using him for 90 minutes.
Fullbacks.
Yeah.
But you're telling me that look at Gilavogi now, for example. Obviously, his legs are gone, but what all the players have said about him since he came in, that experience he's brought, played for France, he's played in the Champions League, played in the Bundesliga for 10 plus years. You're telling me that's not helping them? For me, it definitely is a young lads. Now you're bringing in someone similar, James Milner, who not only is that, but he's Leeds. First season, I just think it's perfect for the first season in the Premier League. I really do.
Interesting. Phil, what do you think?
Can I just to go back a step? When you were talking about Calvin Phillips, I am not anti Calvin Phillips. I think it's been what it's been and done what it's done. But why would you bring Phillips back when you can pay £8 million for Rothwell, who's potentially going to do exactly the same job? They're going to potentially sit on the bench. I just don't think it fits. I like him because he's a Leeds lad, like Locky says. I like the fact that sometimes you need a few homegrown players to get the message out to the other players that this is what it means. I get that. I'm right behind Joe when he says that spine. My biggest worry this season, more than anything else, is Joe Rodon. I think he's been a warrior for us for 2 seasons, and if Rodon gets hurt, I'm not sure if we've got the replacement for him. I don't think we'll be here now if Rodon had got an injury to that extent. So, I'm very much there with the spine. We need a good spine. Obviously, we'll need a right back if Fairport goes as well, but we can pick those up. But get a good spine in first, and then let's build around it. And we have got 1 or 2 gems as well. Who's to say that another great kid doesn't come on the scene? And I know he's young, and it's there's a lot of ifs and buts. But look at Michael Owen. You just need one of those guys to come through, and But if we've got a good spine of the team, then absolutely. But you're right. 200 million quid is what we will need to be spent.
And this is the thing. What I was just going to say as well. Like, look at Robin Koch, for example. I didn't hate Robin Koch. I thought at times he was actually really good for Leeds. He had a lot of injuries, and then obviously faded like everyone else. But the level he's putting in the Bundesliga now, he's one of the best centre-backs in the Bundesliga. Like,
got a German call-up as well.
He's doing fantastic there. Yeah, look at Rasmus Christensen. Yeah, look, Vober last year was very good in the Bundesliga. They weren't good for us in the Premier League. This is the level. It's so hard to assure anyone's going to be good. So it's so, like I said, it's important you get players for the system, but you need players that you think can do it in the league. And the Premier League is so difficult. Like Ben Bloom said, there's no real answer. You've got to get lucky. You've got to hope they are good enough. Because no matter what level you're watching these players at, it's not going to be as good as the Premier League, right? Unless maybe you get some Champions League players who can do it in the Champions League, then they probably will be. But it's so important. I agree. Centre-back is huge. I think we need to get a top Elvedi, for me, played under Daniel Farke. Warrior, absolutely massive. I think he'd be a perfect player for us. And then again, we need a 10 who, I don't know what profile it will be yet, but we need someone who's top level. And we need a striker.
And just to caveat what Lockie's just been saying, when you look at the different standards everybody's tipping Junior Firpo to have been the player of the season at left back in the Championship. He got absolutely murdered when we were in the Prem. That's the difference in levels you're talking about.
He's not my player of the year. Dan James for me has been a standout all season. So
absolutely. Yeah, I no, I'm saying as a left back, So
he's been excellent.
Left backs,
yeah.
The
past month or so. Go ahead.
There's a thing about the market you're shopping in as well. I remember when Leeds got promoted last time, it was like Leeds were shopping in the 10 to 20 million pound bracket of players. That's where we tended to land on. And if you look at it now, only a couple of years on from us leaving, if you're buying players for 10 million quid, you're probably underpaying for players, or you're not getting good enough quality. It's just 10 million quid player probably isn't good enough for the Premier League, unless you can find like an out Tanaka like Gem where you can get a discounted price. But they're not common. They're the exception, not the rule. It was said after the second season in the Premier League that if Leeds wanted to push on the Premier League, then they needed to start shopping in the 40 to 50 million pound brackets for players. And they just weren't in a position to do that. And they went down. If Leeds get promoted, they're walking straight back into a Premier League that probably needs them shopping in the 40 to 50 million pound bracket of players. And that's not that straightforward and not that easy. And again, as I say, FFP kicks in and is like, well, actually, hang on a second, you can't do that. So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You've got to be pretty creative. Locky mentioned about number 10 as well. As far as I read today, Emi Buendia is not staying at Bayern Leverkusen, and he could be available to go. Whether he's the right player, if he's not staying at Leverkusen, is he the right player to bring in for Leeds? Yeah. I don't know. I don't think 3 years of Calvin Phillips playing at 3 different clubs in the Premier League showing that he's just not the same player he was. And again, there was a Q&A in Ireland where Stuart Dallas and Ian Hart were talking, and Stuart Dallas very clearly said Marcelo Bielsa built the team around Calvin Phillips. He found a position for him, and then he built the side around that. No one else has done that. Daniel Farke won't do that. And Calvin is at his best outside of Gareth Southgate's England. Calvin Phillips was at his best when he was a single pivot 6. Leeds don't play like that. He hasn't played well for 3 seasons in a double pivot. Why Leeds would go back in and buy a player for 150,000 a week plus probably 40 million quid of a transfer fee? There's better out there that we need to go and get. Sentiment, as I say, sentiment can't be a factor in this unless, to Locky's point, it's about bringing in someone who knows the place and has that fighting battle and is at that level.
But at this moment in time, is Calvin Phillips going to walk into the first team? And the answer is...
I wouldn't put him. I don't think he walks into the Leeds team now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying. Do you take Tanaka out? Do you take Ampadu out? No, not over Calvin. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I really like our midfield. I think it's really good. Sorry, Alex, just really quick. I really like it. As transferring to the Premier League, you never know. Completely wrong, but I do think Ampadu and Tanaka are good enough. I do. Let's just get a number 8. Just, if we do bring a number 8, maybe a younger guy who's got a lot of talent. Sanchez. You know what I mean? Someone like that. But yeah.
Go ahead and press the like button if you've enjoyed the conversation. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. The other thing I will say, the other bit of good news that I forgot to mention. Japan qualified for the World Cup, first country to qualify. Ao Tanaka was a second half sub. He came on the 46th minute. I'm not sure if that happened right at the start of the second half or not, but he played the full second half from 46 minutes to full time. So fantastic for him and for Japan. They're a good country. I tell you what, they're going to make some noise, I think, in the World Cup. The last thing I'll say, Jir, last question: Sam Chambers or Harry Gray? Who do you think's? Who do you like more?
It's a horrible question, Alex. It's a horrible question.
Yeah.
I'll say what I said on the academy stuff during the week with Jerry McDermott. It's important for everybody who watches football and is excited about young players needs to realize development is not a linear path. It's not a straight line. Just because someone's doing really well right now it's no guarantee they're going to be doing well in 2 years' time. Just if someone's struggling right now doesn't mean they're going to struggle forever either. Players peak and grow at different times in their careers. Right now, Sam Chambers looks like he has all of the accoutrement to be a very good player, especially in a number 10 position, which Leeds don't have an awful lot. He's transitioned from a more defensive-minded midfield position into this number 10 under Scott Gardner, and it's working. He has 10 goals, 10 assists this season for the under-21 side. He's 18 years of age. They're phenomenal numbers. 24 games, I think he's played. And he scored on his debut for the Scottish under-19s yesterday as well. So he's doing all the right things. He's making all the noise. He's training with the first team along with Harry Gray and Rory Mahady. They're all, or Mahady, depending on what country you're in. It's Mahady in Ireland. It's Mahady in Scotland, depending on where you're from. He was a quality young goalkeeper as well that's coming through and is footwork is fantastic. His ball playing on the ground is excellent. Probably one of the best I've seen of a young keeper at his age. The hope is that they all make it. Harry's a little bit further off, and he's 16. There's a hell of a lot of interest in the Premier League apparently right now, and he's not on a pro deal and can't sign a pro deal till he turns 18. So if him or the Gray family decide in the morning that he's off to Manchester City, he's off to Manchester City, and there's nothing Leeds can do about it. They won't have a say in it. They'll get a tribunal fee, and that's it. But from an ability perspective, Harry's doing fine. He's doing all the right things. He's just turned 16. I wouldn't be in a rush. I really wouldn't be in a rush to push him. Let him develop. Let him get his minutes. And if we put him in the first team, we're just going to put a spotlight on him as well. And that's not necessarily a good thing, because if he does okay in the Championship for the last 4 games of the season, maybe he's off to the Premier League with somebody else next season. Maybe we don't want to put, maybe you don't want to put your shiny car in the driveway just yet. Put a couple of scratches on it first. But I think Sam Chambers looks like he's doing all the right things. There's other talented young players down there as well. Oliver Boast is one to keep an eye on as well. Young Freddie Lane, who can play fullback or right wing, is a talented young player as well. Charlie Creswell's younger brother, Alfie Creswell's having a banger of a season as well. So there's plenty of young potential talent in that under-21 side that are very young. There's a lot of under-21 side currently are 19, 18 years of age. They've got a couple of years to develop even at that level. So there's an exciting group there. Jerry McDermott said to me there are 2 other players in the under-16 team that they're very excited about, but one of them is 13 and one of them is 14. So we can't talk about them. So the club can't mention their names because they're minors. So the club has to be, there's rules around what they can and can't say. But there's 2 other players in the 16s that they're very, very excited about and could be probably the best products they've seen. And they're not greys, put it that way. But there's a great cousin there, but he's not going to make it apparently.
I really like Ruben Lapata-White, centre back.
Solid.
Like I said, very long. He's just big, physical centre back who can play the ball. I think there's so much potential with him. I'm really impressed every time I see him. There's a lot of he takes a lot of risk, which I guess at that age shows bravery, how brave he is and stuff. So he's one to watch for me. And Sam Chambers, he's just different. He's just big, powerful, and strong, and he drives with it. You don't really see that much. And when he came on, was it against Millwall? Or in the cup as well?
Started against Millwall.
Confidence, If he took that chance. He might have kept his
he
place on the bench in the squad.
Look, he did against Harrogate in the preseason. He scored an absolute whopper against Harrogate. So he's got it in, and he's not. Again, the Millwall game showed one thing: he's not shy. He feels comfortable at this level. He went in and imposed himself on the game. He went in and got the ball and went at people. And for an 18-year-old, that's a hell of a talent to have, because Archie Gray comes through, and you've got Yamal at Barcelona, Mbappe when he came through. People assume that every single talented 18-year-old is going to be the next big thing, a Haaland or whatever. It doesn't work like that. They're the exceptions to the rule, but in general, a lot of them fall off at that age. So I would pace ourselves on this one and give these lads time. Everyone was in a rush after Chelsea last year to get Mateo Joseph into the starting lineup. Those same people are the same ones that are going to apart this season. So be careful what you wish for. Take your time with these lads. Let them develop properly. Give them time. Give them space to breathe. Let them grow. The club will know what to do with them and when they're ready to play. Anyone screaming for Harry Gray to come into the Leeds United starting 11 for the run-in is just panicking.
Well, I thank you all so much. He is Gier Lynch. Gier Lynch on Twitter, Leeds United, The View. Go ahead and get smart. Watch some more.
Alex, just 1 second. Just 1 second before we go, can I just make a shout out? You know that we've got a little group of Twitter guys together that are also focused on mental health awareness and looking after each other on Twitter, which is extremely important for me. We've sort of lost one of his members. He's gone off the radar, and I'm not going to mention his name, but I know that he watches this kind of thing. So if you're out there, you know who you are. Listen, give us a shout. Let us know that you're okay. And to everybody else out there as well, if you're struggling, please just talk to somebody. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, please do reach out, talk to somebody, and be kind to everybody. You don't know what people have gone through, what they're carrying in their heart and on their back and things like this. So absolutely good shout out, Phil. And I really love being part of this community. I think we have some of the smartest fans in football. I mean, Gier, Locky, and Phil are 3 examples. And absolutely good shout out, Phil. And football can be a cathartic way to bond together. But I think also, so I was just going to say thank you to Gier and Phil and Locky. Watch some Jir and Locky videos if you want to be the smartest person at the pub or at the workplace or in the family about Leeds United. Those are the type of people. If you want to join Phil's huge text thread, message Phil. He's at pow ... Phil.
Yeah.
I should give you Phil Pal Leeds. If you punch that into Twitter, you'll find it. And I'll also just say too, anything with the algorithm, if there's something that doesn't make you sit right with you in the algorithm, tell the algorithm you don't like it. I've been doing that because I have a professional thread and I have a thread that is all about soccer. And sometimes something pops up. I'm very conscious of it. I say, no, I don't like that because it's good to create boundaries with your social media. So remember, you control the algorithm. Don't let the algorithm control you. Thank you all. Smash the like if you can, and appreciate you. Have a great international break.